works all right, I'll talk like this. Maybe I should use, yeah. Raise it up. Nope, comes apart. All right. This is better, I presume. This has been a most interesting morning for me because I was fortunate enough to be here when Dr. Willis, Professor Willis from the African American department here at Circuit spoke. And he raised some interest, some points that I'd like to expand on a little bit. And then again, what's just happened with this talk fits right into the kind of thing I'm going to talk about. So we're all kind of integrating together here. The thing I wanted to say about Dr. Willis's things is that just a week or two ago, I was fortunate enough to be sailing around South America and went around Cape Horn. And as we were sailing through there, we were all informed aboard the ship that we had better put on heavy sunblock because of the ozone depletion around Antarctica. It's so serious that you're in danger physically if you're out in the sun for any length of time. So this what had been mentioned involved only the Arctic, but I wanted to just expand it a little bit and say it's happened in the Antarctic also. The oppression of peoples is not new by any means. For example, when we were traveling around there, we stopped at a couple of ports in South America, and there was a tribe of Indians down there called Unos. And the Unos were people that they were called Indians, a very strange thing they would call them Indians, but they're indigenous peoples. And when the Spanish came into South America at that part, they found these people living there, and what had happened is there were about 30 or 40,000 of them, I think, something of this nature. And they had developed what we might nowadays call a communist type society. They worked together, they shared, they used resources according to their needs, and they had a very calm and peaceful life. And what happened is the Spanish came in and started to set up some farms for their sheep, and the indigenous peoples there didn't know about property and owning of property, and so when they saw the sheep on their land or what they used, they would kill one to eat it, perhaps. And the farmers got very upset with this, and every one of those indigenous peoples has been slaughtered. And this ended, I'm not exactly sure when it ended, but it went on for some period of time, and that tribe no longer exists. It's been taken off the face of the earth. So we talk about extinction of species, we have extinction of people too. Now it's not only there that happened, it's happened here in the United States. Of course, back in the early days of the indigenous peoples, when we put out blankets that had smallpox on them and gave them to the Indians so that they would die off, we did that. Certainly the slavery we had in this country, the enslaved peoples here were treated in a fashion where they were treated as though they were not human. Even the Romans with their slaves back in a couple of millennia before, at least recognized them as being human beings. In this country, we didn't treat people this way. They were less than people. The enslaved peoples here were determined to be non-human, and we do anything we wanted with them. This kind of feeling has generated through our society and is still with us in one form or another. So we mustn't forget that. So the other thing that Dr. Willis was talking about was he said we should talk a little bit about history. Well, I tried to do a little bit of that right now, but I'm going to talk about the USA Patriots Act. I'll refer to it as USAPA, USAPA. This is not new. In 1798, our country, brand new country, passed a law called the Alien and Sedition Law. Well, you can look that up and find out what it was done, why it was done, but it was done to get after French newspaper reporters that they wanted to restrain what they were saying. And so this law was passed to get after a specific group of people. It was a horrible law. The first act Adams is the one that got it in. Jefferson kind of overruled it, but it wasn't until after the second Adams that the law finally wasn't being used anymore. Well, USAPA is not a heck of a lot different than that. We've done, it has done a lot of things to us, which I'll just touch on. I think probably most of you know how this act came into existence, but let me just briefly remind you that it came into being in October of 2001. That is, within a week or so after 9/11, this several hundred-page document appeared before Congress, and they were forced, essentially, to pass it. The fear in the country was so enormous about, and the desire to have some group of people be labeled as being terrible, that this law was basically forced through Congress. Senator Feingold was the only senator who objected to it, and the House passed it as it stood. So that's, of course, there were no committee meetings were held, there was no public hearings, and of course this bill had been crafted long before 9/11, just because of the timing of it. There's many aspects to the USAPA which are dangerous. Let me just mention one of them. There's a court that was set up in the 70s called the FISA Court, F-I-S-A. This FISA Court was Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And what it was after was to try to somehow intercept foreign agents in this country who were stealing our secrets. So it was set up specifically to handle foreign intelligence. Well, but one of the things that exists in this FISA court is, first of all, it's secret. No one knows who the judges are. Well, except the people who appoint them, but they're not publicly known, I should say. It's non-adversarial. The government goes to the court and says, this is what we want, and this is why we want it. And the people that it's directed against don't know about it, and specifically are never informed until they're taken into custody or whatever. Well, this was all set up to handle this foreign intelligence stuff. Well, what has happened in the USAPA, the Patriots Act, is that the FISA court now is available to the lawyers who are concerned about terrorism. Now, what can happen now through the Patriots Act is the lawyers can go to FISA, they can say, we want to have a wiretap, or we want to have a search warrant. The people who are being watched will never be informed about this. You could break into their houses to do the searching, which has never been possible before. You had to have probable cause and all kinds of things to protect the human beings. So the FISA court became available for terrorism. Now, to get back, what's happened to you is within the government, they've introduced a new term called domestic terrorism. And I'll read it so you can see what it says. The definition, it is an act dangerous to human life that is a violation of the criminal laws of the state if the act, let me turn the page, as you get over your fingers get a little stiffer. So it's an act dangerous to human life that is a violation of the criminal laws of the state if the act appears to be intended to influence the policy of a government or a civilian population by intimidation or coercion. Well, I think that's what you were doing. You were trying to intimidate and coerce. Fine, that's what direct action is all about. The key thing in there, you might say, is it has to be a violation of the criminal laws of the state if the attack appears to have this sort of thing. So, I don't know if there's a criminal law against digging holes on a golf course. There might be. And if that's the case, then indeed you were involved with domestic terrorism, and under the USA Patriots Act, all sorts of